Hey folks, good afternoon. So today I wanted to show off my new toy, right? There we go. Labyrinth by Beadles and Grimm for Kobold Press. So I wanted us to go through all the items in the box and see whether or not you think it's worth buying. For those who don't know, so Kobold Press came out with a couple new books. One is the Labyrinth World Book, and one is the Labyrinth Adventure Book. So the idea of these books is basically to introduce, or I should say, I guess, really expand, flesh out, whatever word you want to use, Cobalt Press's cosmology. Whereas if you go to 5e or Dungeons and Dragons, mileage may vary, but a lot of times they use the inner outer ring, right, for their worlds, and Cobalt Press took a different tact, right? So they wanted to introduce different ways to get around their world, right? And I would say this is common for Cobalt Press. I have the Midgard book as well, and if you read through that, there is a number of ways to move quickly through the Midgard world, right? That's their Grey Hawk or whichever original world you want to use for Dungeons and Dragons, right? But for they so this is kind of a theme, right? They want you to be able to move around quickly in their Midgard world. They want you to be able to move quickly to different worlds within different planes, different worlds. They call them worlds now as opposed to planes. I was never quite comfortable with the whole idea of an infinite plane. I mean, I guess it can be, right? But realistically, whenever you saw a plane in D&D, it always, you know, nobody was traveling a billion miles away to go to somewhere else, right? It was always within some local area. So having it being a world makes sense. So how do you travel quickly between these different worlds? What's going on in these worlds? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's the focus of the labyrinth. So let's take a look at this. If I can get it open, there we go. So the first thing you get is this lovely little book, the GM Vault, which it just basically tells you what's in the box as well. It tells you, get close enough so the thing will focus. Focus, please. There we go. What items are used for which adventure inside of the adventure book. So what Kobold Press did was make a lot of small adventures, somewhere between a 1 and 3 shot. I mean, there's smaller adventures depending on how much your group kind of either runs through things quickly or dallies along, whatever it might be. But they're all short adventures in the adventure book with a very loose common theme that you can create between them. There's really not much of a theme in there. You have to basically kind of shoehorn a kind of story in there. But it kind of works for me because the adventure I was thinking of making is kind of similar to their shoehorn adventure at a 10,000 foot level. So using these small stories as fillers in what I'm working on is a good thing. So that book will tell you which one of these add-ons you're going to need for whichever adventure you are running. So the first thing that you get are these wonderful cards. So you go here. There you go. So these are basically the items in the Labyrinth World Book, and you can give these cards to people in order so if they have that item, they just get the card and they can read the item, right? Kobold Press does not have a equivalent of, say, D&D Beyond or something like that. So if you're using this for your home game, and that's what this is for, right? To try and be able to better facilitate, whatever word you want to use, your home game for folks, right? So these cards are pretty nice, right? I had my wife check these cards out. I don't want to go too much detail, but my wife has been in the paper business, making custom, you know, packages for people, not packages, but books and other things for people. Not necessarily something that Kobold Press or other people would run. This is more even specialty than that, that would use high-end products. And the cards, the stock, and everything else got a thumbs up for her, for what that's worth. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely nice quality. They feel nice. They feel like they're going to stand up well. And yeah, they're definitely a plus to your home game. The biggest thing that you get from the Labyrinth is this. So these are all the monsters. Get this big guy closer. Come on. Come on, focus. Focus. There we go. These are all the monsters inside of the Labyrinth World Book. So these are, besides having the beautiful art on the front, the DM gets the information about the monster in the back. So you can just prop these up on your table. Whoop, 1 second here. Right. You get something that looks like that. Whoop, it fell over. That's what I get here. There you go. So they do stand up fairly well. You see that it does bow a little bit. So the cardstock used, it's probably the same cardstock. It feels like the same cardstock and coating they put on this as they did the small cards. So it's enough to keep it standing, but it's not like a heavier cardstock that would keep it as a full triangle. But they're fine. They stand up fine. That's the one I've been abusing the most, because I like that guy. And I can get some other guys to stand up here. Yeah, there they go. They're not hard to stand up. So, yeah. It's nice to have at your table. You can show people, the wonderful art, and then you get to, as a DM, read the back. So you don't have to, if you have a laptop that you're trying to use, that's one thing less you have to put on your laptop, right? So these are nice, right? And what's nice about these cards and these monster cards as well is that these have a lot of replayability. Certainly by weight, it's by far the biggest thing that is in this box, right? So even if you're not necessarily, either once you're done the adventure book, or if you decide to only use some of the adventures in the adventure book, you should get plenty of replayability if you're going to stick with the Labyrinth monsters and cards. You can use them for your homebrew adventure or what have you, and they fit right in, right? And it's interesting. I never bought one of these before until today, so I'm kind of curious, right? When I looked at Beadle and Grimm originally, like they have stuff out there for like $500-600, which to me just seems crazy. But I never got one before, and when this one came out for the Labyrinth, it was relatively cheap. I'll put that in air quotes. I think it was $195 if you were part of the Kickstarter, right? So it seemed like a way to see what these guys produce and then decide if it's worth it for something else, right? And I'll get back to that in a few seconds here, but yeah, we'll just put a pin in that and come back. You also get these things, which again is the maps that come for the adventure books. This is again for the DM, so they can easily look up, for a map that's being laid out, what you can, whatchamacallit, what's going on the map without having the book open. Again, if you're playing this at a table, you have all kinds of books, computers, whatever else going on your setup. This is another way of kind of lessening the load that is in front of you. They are made with pretty much the same stock as everything else, same coating as well, so they should hold up pretty well. They don't split out like the monsters, which is fine. I mean, you could lay it on the table, get some other stand if you had to. It's probably not something you have to refer to continuously, so you can use it as you need. The next thing is, now this is the add-ons for, aren't the add-ons, but come up here. So you get a bunch of paper. So basically, these are handouts that you can use for the adventure, right? Whether it's some handwritten note that you want to give to the players. The biggest one is this guy, right? Which is for whichever module it's for. Haven't read them all yet, but yeah, this little handouts you can give out to the players that tie in to the adventure book and whatever you're running. So these are interesting, and this is what I was getting back to about 30 seconds ago. If I think about this, like if I think of one of the more expensive Beadles and Grimm, that is like $500-$600. I haven't opened one, but I question the replayability, right? Like I'm assuming if I'm just doing something like take Ravenloft. Like Ravenloft doesn't have a whole bunch of new monsters or new items like you're going to get here, that you're going to get like a stack of one of these for a Ravenloft. At least I wouldn't think so. I mean, having run Ravenloft, it's hard for me to wrap my head around what would be in there. I'm sure there's stuff out there, other videos that show you what's in those boxes. But yeah, I would think those boxes give you a heck of a lot more of this than this box did for the adventure. So to be honest, I kind of like that, right? Because to me, if I buy the Ravenloft box or whichever other one, I know there's one for Vecna and whatever else is out there, like once I'm done that adventure, now I've got like a $600 box. Oh, what am I going to do with that, right? I'm going to run it again someday, right? I mean, how many groups of people do I have that I'm going to constantly rerun the same module? But with this, having these monsters and items as cards, again, like I was kind of saying earlier, this feels like a lot more replayability for your buck. You also get maps, and the maps are beautiful. If I can dig them out here, come on. Come on. All stuck down there. Here we go. You also get maps. The maps are ridiculously nice. I mean, I can't say how, to be honest, that even seems to come off well on the camera as I'm watching myself talk while I'm going through this. I mean, just really, really nice maps. Now, one little side note, right? And I believe there's 10 adventures. So I've got 5 double-sided maps for those adventures, right? Now the thing is, I also have with me this big guy, right? The Campaign Builder folio, map folio, right? So just to set expectations, these things, this is the Dungeons and Ruins map. Dungeons and Ruins map. This is, right, the map for the GM Vault, right? As you can easily see, this is much smaller. That's because this, besides being probably bigger, definitely bigger, there you go, right? Definitely bigger, is also coded for wet dry marker, right? So for the, I want to be clear, for Dungeons and Ruins, this uses the wet dry marker. You can draw on it. For what you get in GM Vault, Definitely not. It is not has the same coding as you would use for something like that. These are not meant to be written on. Of course, they're your maps. You can draw them on all you want. But I couldn't do it. It'd be like destroying a work of art. These are really nice looking, and the last thing I want to do is start drawing on it. So keep that in mind. It's great for placing your minis, moving around the board, but these are not to be drawn on. At least I wouldn't. The last thing you get is this. So this is a DM screen. It is very pretty, as with everything I've gotten with this book. Right? That's the, come on, focus. Pretty please. There we go. Very nice looking. Could show the side here. I can't really see what I'm pointing at because I'm blocking my own view. But, yeah. This is nice, right? I haven't done a home game regularly in 40 years, so I do not have one of these. So getting one, I'm happy. That said, if I look at the inside, there's a lot of Labyrinth centric things inside. So I've got some charts here that show like some languages from the Labyrinth, some vehicles. They show a picture of how they do their worlds and how they're situated, roughly speaking. Right? You got some charts. You've got the gods of the labyrinth there, and you've got some other charts, right? You got one on like a random name generator, and over there, if I can read it, I believe it's what happens to you if you're in the deep void too long. So this is a nice GM screen, but I guess I would say, having seen other DM screens in the past, I would have probably, at least in my opinion, appreciated something that had the actual rules for TOV, right? And charts and stuff to make that easier. So I would do less looking up into either the player's guide or the, maybe even the DM, they don't call it the DM thing. It's the Game Master Guide. Now, I get to a certain extent why they did that, because I suppose this is for the Labyrinth and they don't want to be giving you potentially some other material that maybe you didn't pay for. But realistically, like, if you paid for this, are you really not going to have the player's guide or something similar for Kobold Press? Probably you have most of it, right? But at least for me, I think that would have been more useful for a DM. But we'll see. I mean, I've been playing 5e and TOV for so long. Maybe this is more useful than I thought. But out of the box, that's what I think. So that's all of it, right? So if I'm sitting here and just, giving my 2 cents on whether I think this was worth it or not, for $200, considering I never had this before, my answer would be yeah. The main reason I would say yeah is, like I said earlier, right? I mean, getting these maps, they're not writable, right? They're beautiful maps, don't get me wrong. And just getting this little bit for the adventures, that in among itself doesn't sell it for me. What really sells it for me is, like I said earlier, is the fact that I've got all these monster cards that I could use on my home game, and all of these things for your items I can use at my game. And trust me, by weight, and I guess I'm sensitive to that because like I said, my wife used to work in paper. So, so I know where probably most of the expense went in. It went into this pile. And considering that this pile is by far what I'm going to get the most replay value of, I'm happy with this. I don't know if I'd be happy, like I said earlier, if I was buying something for $500 for, like Ravenloft or something. Though I suppose if I could spend $500 for something just for Ravenloft, I probably wouldn't be caring what I'd be spending on Ravenloft. But that's my 2 cents. I would recommend getting this if you do have a home game and you really do plan to use a lot of the Labyrinth world as part of your game. I think this is by far a good investment for your home game. And that's it. Hopefully, you guys thought this was useful for you. And have a good day.